so great to hear.
I know what you're thinking. We ripped off Love Actually.
It was so funny backstage, I have to tell you guys. Paul was like, oh yeah, it's a comedy. And I was like, don't get me wrong, I was that big ha back there when you leaned in, Taron. Like, that was me. And that was the second time today I've laughed at that line, so I appreciate it that hard. But Dennis, I'm gonna start with you because as much as I've enjoyed all of your work on screen, I really love seeing you in this episodic setting. Like, this is just such, like, I feel like this is the story, this is your wheelhouse, and I love the way it unfolds. So why this story, why now, and why with Apple on a series?
I really just wanted to write the line, fuck your sandbox, and then just be done. The project was brought to me when it was still an HBO project, and my friend and colleague, Carrie Antholis, who's one of the producers, I said, I don't want to do this. Like, he described it to me, and I'm like, I'm sick of darkness. I'm sick of prison. I don't want to do prison. I don't like serial killers. Like none of this is enticing to me. And Carrie said, just read it, please, just read it. And so I listened to it on tape, and I was driving to actually a literary festival across California, and there was a moment where the character that Paul plays said something in real life that was so disturbing that I pulled to the side of the road, and I was a little shook, like I was shook. And then when Paul read that exact line in the table read, he cried, and it was this feeling of that is the absolute perfect depiction of the banality of evil that I can think of, and that one line this guy says, and so that, and then I just kept thinking about. I'm very obsessed with what's going on right now in the culture in terms of toxic masculinity, and I began to think about that a lot. And if you look at the show in terms of, thank God Sepideh's in it, because otherwise it's really masculine. And if you look at it, it's like the line of toxic masculinity ends on a serial killer who kills women. I mean, that's the natural end of it. The positive, pure masculinity, which I very much believe in. I'm in touch with my softer side, but not so much that I deny what it is to be male. For me, it's Miller. Miller to me is positive masculinity on every level. Step by step by step. So where's Jimmy in that line? And that became what really interested me about this to do in 6 episodes. Jimmy having an uncomfortable collision with parts of himself he didn't want to know about.
Yeah, that was very much evident from like the first scene, even putting him in a moment where he says something that he is not aware that is in him to say. Like, I just felt like the way you opened the show with him saying his life is only worth 3 grams, I knew who that character was.
But it was Taron too. It's Taron's face when he's like, shit, I just said that. Like you can see it. You can see this realization of, I didn't think that was me. And then I gotta move on. Done now.
I want to bring that to you, Taron, but before we do that, Paul, you brought up that incredible shirt, and I don't want to take a moment without, talking about the person who could not be with us. You didn't know when you were filming this that this would be his last moment on screen, likely, and I just have to say, just seeing him on this was such a moment for me, but what is it like for you, sort of knowing that this is going to be part of the Blackbird story and sort of giving him his swan song and just how he was on set? Because I talked to him for Saints of Newark, and I just tell you, if you ever have the opportunity to talk to Ray Liotta about anything, you will feel better about your life, because he was just such a great person to talk to about film and storytelling and everything
he was a consummate pro, and the thing that I love about Ray is there was nothing about Ray that was sort of warm and fuzzy and huggy and feely, and yet he was such a consummate pro that the very first thing he did with Taron when he saw him on set was hug him, because it was to establish the father-son bond. And that's what I loved. I absolutely loved about Ray. I'll see the chair now after this. I had this great moment with Ray that I'll never forget for the rest of my life, which is Ray did not suffer fools. Ray could have issues with people if he asked a simple question and they gave him word salad. He did not do well with that. So there was a Ray phone that was like the bat phone, and my assistant was on it at all times, and she used the bat phone one day, and I came running over to set, and everybody was tense, and it was taking way too long to set up a shot, and there was Ray, and he was kind of like a raging bull. He was like moving in place inside this little diner, and he sees me, and he walks up, and he says, just throws it right at me as I'm walking towards him. He goes, "What does ruefully mean?" And I'm like, "What?" And he says, "Ruefully," and he shows me the script, and it says, "Smiles ruefully," in the scene he's about to shoot. And he goes, "What does ruefully mean?" And I said, "It means kind of like, Ray, like you're just, you have mild regret." And he says, "No, Dennis, that's not what it means." Like, he fucking nailed me on it, right? He says, "No, Dennis, that's not what it means. Ruefully means," and he quotes the dictionary, right? And I'm like, and then I see he has the dictionary in his hand on the phone, right? He's got Merriam-Webster's dictionary, right? He's got ruefully up there. So I'm like, shit, I'm screwed. And he says, "So what does ruefully mean?" And I said, "What does it mean to you, Ray?" He goes, "Well, tell me first, why would you write this word?" And I said, and there's 200 people looking at me, and I mean, the whole crew is frozen. And I said, "I don't fucking know, Ray, it was 9 months ago." And he goes, "Oh." And then he says, I said, "So how do you feel?" And he says, "I feel mildly irritated." And I said, "Then play that." And he goes, "Okay." And he turns around, he starts walking. I can see everybody stare. They just all look frozen. And I just went, "I'll tell you one thing, Ray. I rue the fucking day I wrote that line." And he freezes, and and he stops, and he stiffens, and the whole crew is like, they look like they swallowed a puppy. And then he turns back and he looks at me and he goes, "Ha ha ha ha!"
Are you telling me that Ray Liotta gave you a Joe Pesci and Goodfellas moment basically on set of Blackbird?
Exactly. But it was kind of authentic. And from that point on, we were like, it was amazing. We were so, because the moment when I said, "I don't fucking know," you could see it in his eyes. It was like, I can work with that, so.
Taron, I'm going to bring it to you, sir. I teared up a little bit on your post, I'm not going to lie, from the other day on Instagram talking about Ray, but this movie is all of you. It's him and it's everyone in between, but I feel with this particular role, it was weird seeing you be so charming, despicable. Like, I'm used to you singing lovely songs to me, Eddie the Eagle, all of that. I was with it, and I was just like, man, you are every guy I want to warn girls about in this show. And it was a different turn. Is that what attracted
I'm
you?
butchering this one.
Is that the attraction to the role?
I think so, absolutely. When I was sent this script, I felt obviously excitement because it was undeniably brilliant, but I felt that I couldn't quite believe it was being offered to me. I could think of 5 actors who would be brilliant choices for it. East Coast tough guys, and I felt like it was very flattering, and I felt very humbled by the fact that Dennis saw something in the other work I'd done that would make me a good choice for this. So yeah, I've run out of things to say.
No, I will say he did, because that was the thing that was disturbing. It's I'm so glad that he's nice, because I've talked to him before in Rocket Man and other things. He's nice, and because this bad looks very good on you, and the nothing is more than that moment when you and Sepideh are at the table and you're like, okay, should we practice? I was like, this kid is dangerous in that moment. But was that it? Because it's his sexuality, it's his charm, and it's nefarious all together. And I think it's those 3 that really make the character so interesting to watch these first 2 episodes.
Yeah, well, it's what I really love about it is a depiction of toxic masculinity, and it's lovely to hear everyone enjoy it and connect with the humour of it. But it's also what I really think is great about the script is it's not a glorification of masculinity. It examines why men make horrific decisions that fuck up the world, and Jimmy may not be as beyond redemption but he is on the spectrum, and that's what always appealed to me about it. Is there is an arc. There's a very clearly defined arc. Jimmy begins the story as somebody who it can be difficult to love. Sure, he's charming and he's funny and he's likable and he's flirty and charismatic, but he is also like, if you really met him, you wouldn't want to go for a pint with him. He's so self-involved. But yeah, thank you. And those scenes with Sepideh, Sepideh and I had never met before this, but you are only as an actor, you are only ever as good as the person you are opposite. And I've seen the show a couple of times now, and I was at the back with my best friend who's traveling with me at the moment, and in that scene where Seppi lasers me about my background, and I'm trying to give her all the moves and all the charm, and she says, don't fucking lie to me in that and we both turned to each other in the same way and both went because she's a force of nature. And Dennis had the wisdom to know that this show, being about toxic masculinity, needed a powerful feminine energy, and then he found the absolute best person to come and bring it.
I was literally going there because I knew you were bringing it from scene one when you put him on his heels, from the moment one in episode 1, but really the level of disgust you leveled at him in that moment, I was like, give her the Emmy, it's it, because you just said that this is not something that any girl wants to sign up for. It was so there. I was like, oh man, she hates him so much, and I love it. And so talk about how she is that force in this, because that is, to your point, I love the show, but without her anchoring it, I don't know if I could suffer through the rest of it.
Yeah, I think just Dennis setting this script up the way he did, it's perfectly structured. Really, it's like a gold mine. It sings like a score, like a music score. It has all of these drives, these cadences, these crescendos, and so literally everything is in the script. But when I first got cast, to my own disbelief, because when I was sent the audition by Alexa Fogel, our casting director, I thought there's no way in hell I'm gonna book this part. It's too good, and I'm sure they have 10 offers out to big names. But I said, fuck it, sorry. I want to just throw myself into this, because when you work on great material, it makes you a better actor. It makes you a better human being. You try to understand these heads, spirits, hearts of people that I can't imagine doing what Lauren does. You know what I mean? How she has to, as many women know, in any career force, you often have to, especially in the 90s, still today, fight 100 times harder than your male counterparts to be taken seriously. And especially in the FBI, women have only been able to join since 1972. Only 2 female agents were admitted in 72, and the year before that, J. Edgar Hoover personally wrote the only female applicant and said, no way in hell, basically. And so it's implied, this toxic masculinity. It's expressed in the script, but I think what's so special about these 6 episodes is you get to see these characters develop in the span of a decade, essentially, more or less. And so you see at the beginning of her career, when she's more cherubic, more youthful, more buoyant, and has this energy, this naivete almost about her, with her no makeup and her natural curls. And then you see later how she's been in the FBI for several years now, and she has to do things to be taken seriously. She has to dress her suits and everything more fitted, not too fitted to be, sexualized, but fitted enough to be taken seriously, just enough makeup, her hair done, her hair straightened, especially for women of color, straightening your hair, it changes everything, right? And so being able to go on that journey with her and find the things that are innate to her power, her strength, but not being able to show her vulnerability. And I think that one scene at the beginning of episode 2, where I'm kind of drilling, Lauren's drilling Jamie about the women, his taste in women, and she says, all right, you said, well, I can't remember my own lines, but
you're not supposed to. You did it there. We saw.
Basically said she's sort of recapitulating what he just said, and she says, "Oh no, wait, you don't like or
You don't get hung up on hair.
yeah, that's right. You don't get hung up on hair." She
Good to have the
she
writer
brings
here.
inside. I think it's so brilliant because in the text, Dennis is showing that she's getting a little flustered. She might be heating up a bit, but she cannot show it and she won't show it. So she completely covers it up and moves forward. You know what I mean? And so she can't mess up. There's no opportunity.
There was a quiet desperation of not just a woman, but particularly a woman of color in a predominantly white male space that I felt essentially watching your character. That is not necessarily overt, but it like radiates like a heat
Yeah.
underneath all of this. And Greg, with your character, what I think is the opposite of that is without making him the only cop in this entire thing that I have any ounce of like respect for. It's like he's almost too good in some respects in this whole situation.
Sorry.
but it's what was interesting is how you played that, because I feel like that character, like you and Paul were on the same, I think, side in the sense that in a way you guys are the devil and the angel on Jimmy's shoulder, and so giving, I think, complexity to that is so incredible, and that's why I really loved what you're able to do. And the more heat you gave him, that was what I liked. So like F your sandbox, absolutely.
After Sandbox. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I listen, unlike Dennis, who was sick and tired of the dark side and serial killers, I'm Greg Kinnear, so I was like, bring it on. Bring it, baby. I love this story. I love the depth that it went to, and every character in this has their moments of success and failure. It's gripping, and I was honored to be a part of it. I really felt like at the end of the day, it was, to be truthful to what Miller was, which, former Vietnam vet who was, a dog with a bone, and I loved his determination. He was having a lot of voices questioning, telling him that this was not the way to go, this guy is not guilty, and I just liked his through line all the way through, and I think the relationship that Sepideh and I got to form, it was wonderful. She's incredible in this movie, Emmy, really, it was great. So you never know, right? All these things are crapshoots. You show up, you never know what's going to be like. All I can say is we had a table read during Zoom. Can you imagine? I can't figure out Zoom still. And we had a table read, a 6-hour table read for Blackbird, and I was like ready to blow my brains out before this thing even started. It was the most amazing thing I ever experienced. It was fantastic. There wasn't a bad beat in it. Every person was cast in it. They were alive. It came alive in a way that was remarkable. And I was at that point, I was like, well, we're in the green grass now.
I agree on that one. I really do.
I wanted to just interject one quick thing about Miller that Greg and I talked a lot about, and that will be a perfect segue to your last round, which is Miller, as I envisioned him, was based on the real Miller, was very methodical. He was very he did just drive this straight line through a lot of people trying to tell him no, Larry didn't have anything to do with this. But the one thing that I said to Greg that I kind of whispered in his ear that he plays beautifully is that Miller secretly hates Larry. He loathes Larry. He loathes everything he represents. And there's a real moral revulsion to him that only clicks in a couple of times. It's the way he snaps the confession out of his hand, and then there's a moment right near the end in how he reacts to Gary, his brother. And that's the only two flashes you see. But I feel like Greg played it so perfectly, underplayed it so perfectly, that you feel it. You'll feel it. And so by the end, you'll just be like, when he has that reaction to Gary, which is very kind of startling, I think, you go, oh no, he was that way all along.
Which wasn't easy because I love Paul Walter Hauser.
So perfect.
I think I speak for this whole room when I I say I love Greg Kinnear.
Paul, I definitely want to make sure that I give you this moment because I honestly, at this point, I don't know how you did it because that is such a despicable character and it is so, I think, easy to go into caricature with him, but he still manages to be funny. At parts in this, you get invested in y'all's friendship. It was, I think, a very clever dance that you and Taron did with that character to make him so dynamic. So talk about the first days, maybe talking with Dennis with him, because he says that what you did in that cry moment changed the character. So how did you see him that was maybe different?
Thanks. Thanks for watching the show. I can't speak for every actor, but I'm the type of person who always watched movies and TV and thought, wow, maybe someday I'll get to wear a cape or hold a knife or swing from a rope or, you see these fantastical things and you think, what if I could get a chance to embody that or trespass into that skin or whatever. A serial killer is something, we've seen some people do it really, really, really well. Tony Hopkins being at the top of the list. And I call him Tony because he and I are really close.
I was literally like,
Yeah, T-Money couldn't be here today. Drinking warm milk and watching Barry on HBO Max. Serial killers are just super interesting. I think we're all fascinated in it. Serial killers, the penal system, it's not something we would ever want to inhabit, but we'll watch it on TV all day because we're weirdos. So, with Larry, it was very much an approach of just committing and having the life of the mind versus the external life, which once again, that sounds very kind of wannabe actor, lofty, intellectual, but for real, as Larry, you have to think, what is the life inside your mind that is not entirely factual? And then how do you operate in that world while also operating in a world of mess halls with prisoners and depositions, etc. And that's why you see these weird little stuttery emotional moments. The son of a bitch is just trying to figure out where he's landing on a thought half the time.
I mean, that's probably the truest statement there. Dennis, as you talked about, you listened to the story first. There was obviously a line between reality and what you guys wanted to do as far as storytelling. And I know a lot of that got worked out on the page. So where did you sort of draw the line on how you made that balance as far as, being true and authentic to these real life people and this real life experience, but also still trying to make compelling 6 episodes?
The only places where when I first agreed to do this, I said my first condition was we will never show any of the violence against the women, ever. I will not do it. And I said I really want to take their stories back from Larry Hall, and so when you get to the 5th episode, you'll see that. That was my fuck you to anybody who would do this kind of destruction to families, to people. That was the sickest part of what Larry Hall did, was he hid the bodies so that the families could never have closure. So having agreed on that, then it was, I'd never adapted factual before, so I was like, what do I do? I'll stay true to the spirit of it. I will never say anything about any character in this show that would portray who they were as a person, as far as I understand it. And then when I have to make stuff up, it'll be stuff that, again, doesn't portray the essence of the person involved, right? So like the Miller-Macaulay storyline that takes place in the kind of present of the prison time, that was not Miller and Macaulay. That was a series of law enforcement officers who did all that. Brian Miller's investigation that led to the arrest of Larry Hall is 100% factual, and the FBI handler who went under another name who handled Jimmy is pretty much factual. The only other difference I will say that's 100% is that Jimmy never had a journey emotionally like he does in this show, because Jimmy, and I think Jimmy would admit this, Jimmy's not the most introspective human being on the planet. So I can't tell a story about a guy who's kind of like, shit happens. He's a serial killer. There's no story there, you know what I mean? So I wanted to tell a story about a guy who went on a journey, which is probably the story of every main character I've ever written, in which he has uncomfortable confrontations with both the dark parts of himself and then the light part of himself. This entire story hinges on Taron's character having the most inconvenient, it's like an inconvenient attack of empathy that turns the entire story. It's the climax of the story. And in real life, did it go down that way? No, it was actually an inconvenient attack of egotism that triggered the climax of the actual story. But I made it empathy. Like, at the worst possible time, this guy discovers his humanity.
Well, that's good storytelling. Glad you made that shift. Taron, with this one, I just wanted to bring it to you a little bit because you added another apostrophe or whatever, comma into your title in this one and doing EP as well. Did that shift it a little bit, knowing that you were producing this one as well as starring in it and bringing it out? Did that shift it at all, or was it something that you wanted to do when you accepted the role?
No, I mean, it meant that I could moan to Dennis about stuff that were, you know, just the size of my trailer, you know. You know, look, I mean, yes, I am an executive producer on the show, but it would be remiss of me to claim, you know, anything other than just my role as leading actor, which I
don't think that's true at all.
That's not, for the record.
I'm hearing some fake news.
I just.
It was Taron who really pushed to look at.
I wouldn't be here without Taron.
I mean, without that.
you know, I had an agenda with that as well. I wanted it to be good. So, you know, I mean, so that's really lovely. I mean, I read the script and I thought it was, I was really lucky in my 20s. I started acting in films when I was 23, and I did a few that I was so proud of, and they were great, and I still am, but it was largely popcorn, you know, and I love popcorn. I still do, you know. But then I knew that as an actor and as somebody who is aspiring to be an artist, that there was something that I felt I had a lot that I wanted to expand into. And I did Rocket Man, and that more closely resembled that. And after that, I felt that you know, I wanted to do something of equal complexity, but that was very, very different. And Dennis offered me this job, and it was everything that I wanted out of an acting gig. I just read it and this thing is undeniable. If you read this and don't think it's good, I'm really sorry, but you don't know a good script. Right? And I just thought, wow, how amazing would it be to not only act in it, but to also try and ingratiate myself with the creative nucleus. And so I asked Dennis, and he agreed, and it was a great experience. And he was, you know, any great filmmaker, I think, knows that no man is an island, and best idea wins, and that you can help other people help you. And Dennis understands that. That's why he is who he is, you know. And I'm very, very glad that I was afforded that opportunity. I loved it. The whole experience has been extraordinary for me. It was extraordinary when I first read it in July of 2020 in my apartment during, you know, when the world stopped. And I actually, you know, I shouldn't say it because I'm in it, but I think it's extraordinary now. I think it's a great. I really do think it's a great piece of work, and I'm really proud to be a part.
I just want to walk off that for a second and say that it's really rare in this business. I've been in it long enough to know that what we had here and what Taron's speaking to, and why I was like totally excited to partner up with him is, I love people who have super strong ego of the work. That means people who will fight for the integrity of what they're doing under all circumstances. They won't take. I don't want people who are just happy and smiley all the time. I want people who are like, you know, angry, say, when somebody does sloppy work. And that type of ego is an ego I'm completely attracted to. What nobody on this stage had was the ego of the self. And that's that narcissistic, insecure bullshit that sinks this town. And we didn't have any of that. Everybody was just so committed and so selfless, and that showed.
Sorry. I want to say this crowd is a testament to that, as they are breaking out in applause every chance they get. So that is a testament to that. Everything you guys did on screen is a testament to that. I want to thank you all so much, but this is our time for the day.